all month we've been speaking about the gifts of the season. And we haven't been speaking about the physical gifts. We have been speaking about the metaphysical gifts, the spiritual gifts that we all have within us, as Vince so perfectly synchronized, because we really rehearsed that. It's perfect because it's all in harmony with God. It's all divine right when we get out of our own way and just let the universe take over. It's amazing how beautiful that everything comes together. It's just wonderful. So each week of this month, I have invited you to open your heart and to allow yourself to receive and experience each of the gifts that we'll speak about. And then the second thing was to bring those gifts forth and to share them with others, as Vince said. So we have these gifts within us, but we got to experience them by giving them away. And then the cycle is complete. It's continuous. It's a full cycle, never ending. So today we're going to look at the fourth gift, and that's the gift of Christ. And it felt very appropriate this Sunday before Christmas, because this is the gift. This is the gift of Christ, of that beautiful light consciousness within each and every one of us. And so we're going to discuss what is Christ consciousness? What is this gift of Christ? Well, before I talk about this, I'd like to spend a few minutes clarifying a few points. First, a question. When you hear the word Christ, is there a certain person that immediately pops into your head? Of course. For most of us, whether we grew up believing that Jesus was Christ or not, his name is synonymous with the word Christ. But here are a few points that you might not know. First, you might not know that Jesus was not given this name at birth. His name was Joshua, and he was called by many as Rabbi Joshua. The Romans gave him the name Jesus, and probably they might not have been able to speak, I'll say the word Joshua, but they gave him that name. And Christ was not Jesus' last name. It really wasn't. And it's so interesting for us to know this, and I think it's just amazing, because Christ comes from the Greek word anointed one. That's where it comes from. Christ means anointed one. So it wasn't a last name, it was a title. It was a title. And there were many people with this title. And so, in religious science New Thought, which is what we are, we believe that the word Christ is a principle, not a person. In this one book, The Revealing Word, which is a metaphysical dictionary, Christ is defined as the incarnating principle of the God-man, the perfect word or idea of God. Christ is the divine man. Jesus is the name that represents an individual expression of the Christ idea. Christ existed long before Jesus. Christ abides in each person, he writes, and his innate perfection. Christ is the living principle working in man. So Rabbi Joshua, who later became known as Jesus Christ, he could either be looked at as the example or the exception. The example or the exception of this principle working. And because he tried to teach us a principle, he tried to teach us the principle of love. That, if you read the pure teachings of Jesus, is what he came here to say. The Father and I are one, so there's that oneness, that unified state of being, and love. To love one another. To love one another. Isn't it? It's a principle that humankind still hasn't fully deepened into yet. Not yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I believe that. So perhaps we haven't gotten it yet because so much theology and dogma has crept in between to teach us what to do, how to say it, and about Jesus, about how he is perceived to be through Christianity. And Stephen Mitchell, in his book, The Gospel According to Jesus, wrote, "We can't begin to see who Jesus was until we remove the layers of interpretation which the centuries have interposed upon us and him, and which obscure his true face, like coat after coat of lacquer upon vibrant colors of a masterpiece," he writes. The portrait of Jesus that emerges from the authentic passage in the Gospels is of a man who has emptied himself of the mental trappings and spiritual baggage that separated him from the true life of spirit. His trust in God was as natural as breathing, and in God's presence, he himself was fully present. In his very language, he reflected God's deep love for everything that is earthly, for the sick and the despised, for the morally admirable as well as the repugnant, for the weeds as well as the flowers, for the lions as well as the lambs. He taught that just as the sun gives light to both wicked and good, and the rain brings nourishment to both righteous and unrighteous, God's compassion embraces all people. I'm still reading from him. There are no preconditions for it. Nothing we need to do. Nothing we have to believe. When we are ready to receive it, it is there. And the more we live in its presence, the more effortlessly it flows through us. So many respected scholars agree that Jesus made no claim to be the anointed one. He didn't walk around and say this. No, he did not say, "I have come here for your salvation." He lived it. He proved it. Those ideas all came later and were developed by other people. But what happened as Christianity developed is people started to focus on the messenger rather than the message. There was a message that this man came, this mystic, this incredible clear channel of spirituality came to teach us. If we but listen to the words and read about the true acts that he selflessly did. An example is like if you point your finger to a dog, the dog focuses on the pointed hand first. And that's kind of how some Christianity looks at Jesus. They look at the index finger pointing out as a way to God. And people got all excited and passionate about which was the pointing part of it, rather than who was pointing. Who was pointing? And here's where he pointed. He pointed to the idea that each and every individual had, if they would but open their hearts to it, an intimate relationship with God. We all have this within us. He pointed to the idea of a personal nature of the kingdom of heaven. Not out there, it's in here. This is where the kingdom of heaven or hell is, within each and every one of us. We create it, but it's within us. The essence of God, our souls, whatever you want to call it. We are all part of this eternal oneness. It's an eternal thing. He pointed to the divinity of all human life. You're all divine beings. Did you know that? We're each and every one of us a divine being. It's beautiful. It's empowering. It's empowering. He pointed to non-judgment and loving service. As Vince talked about, service as a way of being. And he pointed to the unlimited possibilities that are available to anyone if we would but believe. We must believe in ourselves. It's a whole, as I keep referring to Vince as he went before me, but he got it right, as we're born knowing this. And then we forget it somewhere along the way. And so now it's time to remember it again, that we are beautiful beings of the light. That is the truth of who we really are. Look at a little newborn baby. It's a beautiful being of the light. There's no judgment in that baby. There's no stuff to clear away. It just is. Perfect, joyful, loving. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, wrote that Jesus was either the great exception or the great example. If he were the great exception, there is little we can do other than admire the spiritual attitude from which he spoke. If, however, he were the great example, we should follow his teachings and seek to make it practical in our everyday living. And Holmes said that Jesus chose to think of himself as the great example, saying that what he did, others could do. You can do it too. That is what he was saying. And Holmes also says, we believe in Jesus, we believe in Buddha, we believe in Socrates, we believe in Moses, and more than anything else, we believe in our own soul, our own divine nature. The only immediate testimony you and I will ever have that we exist or that God exists is that soul within us. That's the aliveness of this spirituality. It is alive. It is alive with limitless possibilities, and we're free to create and think with these beautiful minds that we have been given to think with. And so let us be clear right here about our beliefs in Jesus the Christ, the Anointed One. We do not deny the divinity of Jesus, but we affirm the divinity of all people. We do not deny that Jesus was the Son of God, but we affirm that all people are the children of God, each and every one of us. We do not deny that the kingdom of God was revealed through Jesus. We believe that the kingdom of God is revealed through you and through me, through all of us. Living from this spiritual point of view, this perspective, is a gift of empowerment that we give ourselves. And that's what it's about. Knowing how great we really are, how worthy we are of love, of peace, of joy, of whatever we imagine or desire in our lives. And then we can give it to others. You can't give away what you don't have. So you must be the love that you really are if you want to give it away. You have to. It's an awesome gift to give to yourself and then to share with others. It's beautiful. That's how we're shifting the consciousness of this planet. That's how we're doing it. By knowing the kingdom of heaven is within and that we are love and we give the love. And as we spread the love, the healing occurs. The healing occurs. So as we begin the practice of beholding the divinity of Christ in everyone we meet, the world is presented a different picture. Love heals. Remember that. Love heals. Love heals. The world really will respond differently because the world will bring back to us exactly what we put out into it. We have that law of cause and effect. It's always working, whether you're aware of it or not. So look around at what's going on in your life and see if you want to change a few things in it. So there is a presence within each of us which is divine, and it is called the Christ presence within. So we're giving ourselves the recognition that the Christ, the Anointed One, is within each and every one of us. And so then I have a story that's going to bring this whole thing into perspective. I have to keep this short, so I'm cutting out a lot of this stuff because Vince and I so joyfully shared this microphone. I can't say podium because he doesn't stand in front of it. So I want to conclude this with a story that might bring it home a little bit. Each December, this is a mother writes, this is something that circulates, I see it on the internet, and I thought it would be really cool to bring this